Let's talk about strength. Depending on the game that you're playing, there's an average amount of strength that each character in the roster is going to have. In some games, it feels like almost every character can do anything they want, whereas in other games, it feels like characters are more stripped back, letting them focus on specific kinds of playstyles and removing anything that would cause confusion or inhibit that playstyle. What kind of fighting games that you personally like is a complete matter of opinion, and the likelihood is that you can like games with drastically different power levels because they're fun in their own right. I've been really enjoying Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, even though the weakest character in that game could absolutely destroy anyone in Strive with the amount of stuff that they can do. But maybe you don't know about the different types of fighting games. Maybe you've looked at the EVO announcement and thought, these games look sick, but they all look so complicated. Maybe it's just another Friday night and you're sat there with your popcorn and bevy because your favorite niche internet micro-celebrity FGC personality uploaded, and he's about to say something funny. Geo's tits. So let's go through a few different games that show the example of power levels in a poor attempt to categorize them with each other for content. So let's start with what can only be described as the wimps. Before we get into more conventional fighting games, it's best that we pay homage to games where the average power level is shockingly low. There's come to be a sort of subgenre in the FGC where the idea of the game is to just remove as many functions from characters as possible in order to make the game more simple. When I say that, your mind may begin to think of games like Fantasy Strike or the absolute GOAT that is Top Club Arena at topclubarena.com. It's a fucking browser game with rollback netcode and easy inputs. Play it on your PC, play it on your phone, play it on the bus, play it while taking a shit, play it wherever. What are you waiting for? It's free. Go play Top Club Arena at topclubarena.com. Sorry, it's been a while, so I had to get that out of my system. But even though these games remove features like high, low, and left-right mix-ups by having a binary state of your character is or isn't blocking, which gets rid of any mix-ups that isn't strike-throw, we can go deeper. Footsies was originally an Android game where you and another person could fight each other. The first person to score a hit wins the round, and the first person to win 3 rounds wins the game. It later got ported to PC and now has rollback netcode and a better lobby system than Strive. Yeah, I said it! While your character does have a variety of attacks and even a one-time use Raging Demon move, both players are locked to one character with the exact same moveset and no way to avoid attacks apart from forcing them to whiff. Because of this, it's the simplest and lowest power level fighting game that you can get. What the hell was that sound? You nearly forgot about Dive Kick! The most skill-expressive and deep fighting game on the planet! How do you move? You don't! You can only jump and dive! How many buttons does it take to dive and kick? So yeah, Dive Kick is known as being one of the most notoriously simple fighting games out there. As you can see, the ideas of whiff punishing and footsies still apply, but there's no real mix-ups in the game outside of a few characters. Hell, it's the only fighting game I know that literally doesn't have any form of frame advantage because there's no way to block. It keeps what is core to fighting games, being mind games and reading your opponent, but it removes all of the things that some people could see as distracting and bullshit. If you lose in Dive Kick, it's entirely on you, and that's pretty sick. Alright, on to the actual low power level games. Low power level games refers to a game in which characters have options, but they're generally somewhat limiting or there's a small amount of them. They will still have the general fighting game conventions such as high-low blocking, throws that are mostly techable, and short combos with a few areas for resets and mix-ups. Games like Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Street Fighter 2 and the original Mortal Kombat fall into this category. That doesn't mean these games are bad, but your characters generally only have a limited amount of options that you can do. The universal mechanics are also not really there, or they're not that impactful in ways that open up the game. While the later versions of Street Fighter 2 definitely added more things to each character and new universal mechanics like supers and being able to actually tech throws, the majority of characters still have extremely basic movesets with an average of 4 special moves. Some characters like Guile only have 2 special moves for the entirety of the game's run. Even Zangief got at least 1 new special move. Poor guy. Now, the observant of you will have noticed a similarity between Grand Blue Fantasy vs. and Mortal Kombat, and yes, it's time for Gekko to bitch about the block button again! Yay! Alright, so to make things clear, I am about to talk about the original Mortal Kombat. If you want to know, the games after MK9 generally fit into the category that we're going to talk about next. And maybe Mortal Kombat 3, I don't know, I've not played that one. Grand Blue falls into this category by forcing each character to have only 4 special moves along with simple inputs and a fucking cooldown timer for EX moves. I would try to throw my fireball again, but I gotta wait a few seconds because of anime bullshit, so EX-Tim! Both of these games have the dreaded version of blocking, which is, of course, the block button. Now, I will admit, using a block button is up to personal preference, and Granblue even lets you hold down back and back to block, but there is a cardinal sin that block buttons introduce that forces the average power level of all characters to decrease. Block buttons remove left-right mix-ups. Basically, when you're holding the block button, you're committing to one of two versions of blocking, stand block and crouch block. This is the same as holding back and down back to block, but there's one vital difference. When holding down back, if the opponent goes to the other side, you need to switch your blocking position to the other side of the stick in order to block the move correctly. With a block button, you don't need to do this as you're already in the binary state of is blocking. Because of this, any character that discovers an interesting left-right mix-up suddenly can't use it because it's just countered by the existence of the block button. A situation I'm sure won't be coming up to bug me in any future games. God, please let DNF be good. Anyway, there's nothing inherently wrong with a low power level game. If anything, they're more interesting when focusing on the neutral and the mind games between each players than dealing with large combos and ridiculous knowledge checks. Now, let's move on to something a little more interesting. Now we'll get into the interesting stuff. Your medium power level is your current average fighting game. These games generally have all of your basics, a variety of characters that have interesting offensive and defensive techniques, and universal mechanics that are able to add gimmicks that make the game stand out. Games like Street Fighter 4 and 5, Guilty Gear Strive, and the current Mortal Kombat games, and Dragon Ball FighterZ. Oh, you think Dragon Ball should be higher? Oh, buddy, you have no idea. Most of the time, characters have unique gimmicks and interesting things that they're able to do, but they still fall into dedicated roles that can be easily understood. They're a zoner, they're a grappler, they're a rushdown, they're a piece of shit! Generally, their movesets allow them to do crazy stuff, but they require some form of resource to really go crazy, be it crazy damage, crazy mix, or ridiculous pressure. Most modern games seem to be aiming for this kind of region, giving the players ways to do cool stuff, but not having the gameplay be overwhelmingly oppressive and bullshit for the defenders. Also, before we move on to the next region, I do kind of have to bring up Tekken 7. While the newest installment in Tekken isn't the most complicated in the franchise and doesn't exactly have insane mechanics all over the game, a lot of the characters have a ridiculous amount of moves with tools that they don't exactly need. It's not an extremely high power level game because the movement is generally considered nerfed compared to other 3D games, and the universal mechanics are pretty iffy, but it's definitely got more stuff than the other games that we talked about in this category. Alright, let's talk about the crazy shit. High power level games are games where the developers just decided, you know what? Fuck it. You want to be able to do it? You can fucking do it. Low tiers? The fuck is that? Our worst character can still kill you off a fucking throw if you're not careful enough. But it's just a cat. Oh, sweet fuck! Yeah, so games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3, NBA ACC, Blaze Blue Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, Guilty Gear X, and Core Plus R, and, of course, Skullgirls. Skullgirls, I just reset you 5 times and you're finally dead. Now shake my hand. Now, I know I just listed a lot of games in this category, but it's because these games force themselves into your brain and punch as many synapses as they can to get you to enjoy yourself. Look at this 12-way setup! Look at this insane defensive technique! Look at this touch of death off of a simple jab! Are you having fun? Are you enjoying it? Come on! Look! Look! Yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess. High power level games are generally pretty polarizing. They can be extremely fun because you can do a lot of crazy shit off of simple interactions, but there's generally a level that most players have. Some players will really like games like Exile and Persona, which are high power level games, but they still can't enjoy games like Plus R and Skullgirls because they're just a bit too much. Fighting game power level is like steak. High power level games are as close to rare as possible. Some players really like them as bloody as possible. They want all the juice to ooze out of it. Other people would call them animals and want something more medium, more mild. It's still got some nice juice in there, but it's presented in a nicer way. It might even taste better to them. Some people don't want any pink bits because it's not cooked if it's not like that, and they go for something well done. Some players want to eat hockey pucks. The point is, you have a range of how these games are prepared. No 2 games are going to be the exact same in the genre, so trying a bunch of different ones out and seeing how they play is generally a good idea. You'll likely personally have a range of these games that you like to play as long as they fall into it. What's the average power level of your fighting game? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and go play Persona, please. It's so good. Let's go! Hit him with a fucking...